Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Victor Atsu Tamakloe, sitting in for your regular host, Nathaniel Atta, who, by the way, is joining us in a moment from his base in Morocco, where he is on his special assignment. We're going to have a conversation about why he's there and what's so important about the tournaments currently ongoing in Morocco. But back home, we've got big fishes to fry. There is the small matter of the unfortunate passing of Francis Frimpong, a football fan who was stabbed to death, unfortunately, a week ago. Quite a bit has happened since that incident, somewhere around 6 p.m. on Sunday night. We will bring you up to speed with what the police have been doing, what the Ghana Football Association has been doing, what the clubs have been doing, what's to happen tomorrow. Because Kumasi Asante Kotoko have made an announcement today. We'll tell you all about that. Then yesterday, we had the swearing in of Ghana's new Sports and Recreation Minister, Kofi Idi Adams. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had quite a bit to say at that ceremony, the presidency yesterday. So we'll get into all of those. So those mainly are the issues for us to discuss today. It's 16 minutes gone past 12 p.m. on Joy 99.7 FM. I'm going to be joined by Felix Romak, who's already in the studio. We've got a big guest, someone at the heart of the investigations into the murder case involving Francis Frimpong, the late Francis Frimpong. We'll tell you all about it because she has been at the forefront of the Ghana Football Association's efforts. And I'm talking here about DCOP Lydia Donko, who is the CAF Safety and Security Officer and the GFA's Safety and Security Committee Chairperson. She is joining us in a moment for us to have a conversation, get a briefing on what she's been up to, because on Monday, the Ghana Football Association released a statement that she had been dispatched to head to Nsatraman and investigate that particular matter. So we'll have a conversation with her, as we will with former general manager of Nsatraman, Eric Alagida. He's also joining us in the studio this afternoon for that conversation. On Zoom, we're going to have former Kotoko Express editor Jerome Ochri and then former General Secretary of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, Maurice Kwanzaa, joining us on Zoom for today's conversation. So this is what we've got for you between now and 2 p.m. on Joy 99.7 FM, and that's why you've got to stay tuned from now until the end of the conversation. Let me bring in my first guest. Good afternoon, Felix. How are you doing?
Well, actually, I'm doing great.
Great to have you. It's been over a year since I hosted you, right?
I tell you.
Yeah.
Charlie.
How's the week?
But we did some few work on the Premier League.
Yeah, the Ghana Premier League review. Yeah. Special thanks to you for that one. I had to drag you from your sick bed to do it, but in the end you delivered. Just talk me through the sort of week you have had from witnessing what, or getting the news of what happened on Sunday, the reaction of the clubs, the FA, to that emergency meeting on Thursday and the joint statements first that had to work and Kotoko released, and then later the one released by all 18 Premier League clubs after the meeting.
Well, actually, I think that I must say that I wasn't surprised. It's just sad that I have that in mind that one day, whatever it is that we've been doing with our league in terms of security, we'll get to a point where somebody is going to lose his life. And actually, I say this because we've had somebody lose an eye. We've had gunshots at league venues.
I think about 11 years ago, a referee was killed in the Western region.
Yes. We've had, clubs being attacked by fans in their bars. In recent time, we can talk about the Tamale City incident. We've had coaches being beaten. Maxwell Kunedu suffered some beatings when Bofakwa played in Swatrema at the Coronation Park last season.
Yeah.
He was admitted to spend some weeks at the hospital. We've had journalists being attacked. And actually, let me share my own personal experience. And it's sad because I didn't even suffer at just the venue. I was beaten at the Nana Jumambedu Park in Doma
Doma.
by people who were associated with the club. I
Okay.
was at
Felix, so hold it there. We would have to
Sure.
move to Morocco, where Nathaniel Ato, Kwame Benaya, and Mubarak of Mubarak Arena of the Joy Sports Desk are all on standby for us to have this conversation. I believe we have Nathaniel Ato on the line. Bazato, good afternoon and welcome to your home, which is the Joy Sports Link. Today, I'm the one doing the hosting. You have got to answer questions we're asking you, and not the other way around. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, and it sometimes it feels very weird to be on the other side of it, but hey, it's fun as well.
Yeah. So Nathaniel Ato is leading our coverage of the Hassan II Trophy GPA Golf Tournament. It's the only PGA Tournaments player played outside the US and European zone and has received massive coverage from around the world, and that's why Joy Sports is there. Now, he is at the Royal Dar es Salaam Golf Course. That's, first of all, what's the latest that you can tell us from all of the matches that have gone on up until this point?
All right, as the situation stands, we're going up into the final hours of this tournament, and the key thing here is that there's been a lot of stiff competition. That for the men, which is in the Hassan II Trophy, it's Miguel Jimenez of Spain who looks to be top of the leaderboard, and then and actually the leaderboard is right behind me, and so there's a lot in terms of expectation as they gear up towards the final holes here on the golf course. Now, Stephen Alker of New Zealand as well is also part of the top two, on the leaderboard. So we're waiting for the next couple of hours to see who will dominate. For the ladies in the Lala Mariam Cup, the results are being collated as we speak. So very shortly we'll also be getting a hold of all of that. In terms of the competition, it's been great. I mean, last year we had the Argentine. Ricardo Gonzalez. Ricardo Gonzalez won his very first PGA title here last year, so he came in as the defending champion. He spoke to us at the start of all of this, and he was hopeful that he could get it done. But he admitted that the likes of Jimenez were going to give him a stiff competition, and it's happened. It sure has happened. And just so we're all clear, now Miguel Jimenez has won 21 European Tour victories, and so he's coming in with a very, very big pedigree. So it's not too surprising that he's there on the leaderboard. So not the best of surprises because, when you look around and you look at the pedigree of all of the top players who were ranked for this tournament, Miguel Angel Jimenez sure stood up because of the number of European titles that he's won here. So there's a lot of great interest, especially from Europe and different parts of America, considering that this is the only PGA Tour, tournament that is played outside of the US and Europe region.
Interesting matchups and what is generally a very competitive competition that we've seen this year. But let's move the conversation on from the course itself and talk about what the competition represents as far as opportunities and lessons on the continent. What have you gleaned so far?
Well, when we came in, one of the key things we were looking at in terms of interest was that of, the African interest, okay? How well represented is Africa on this very big stage of golf? I mean, there in Ghana, the recreational element is very big, the amateur element is very, very big. We've got a few professional players who have been doing well to play in some key tournaments, in the Gulf and also on the African continent. We have some invitational tournaments that take place from time to time. But key thing here is that the leader in terms of who is carrying Africa's torch, in this very prestigious tournament is Ernie Els. Everybody knows Ernie Els because of his big wins on the PGA Tour. Now he's a six-time PGA champion, and so coming in here, everybody was just, focusing on him because number one, he's African, he's from South Africa, and he carries the torch. Also, there's Retief Gosen. Retief Gosen won the U.S. Open in 2001 and 2004. So these two, are the torchbearers for Africa. What is important here is that we see them take part this regularly, and then also gradually we see them bid for the top title itself. I'm not sure it's going to be a very big plus for the continent, and also create a lot in terms of inspiration for other players in different countries on the African continent, to make it. Now, when we look at the women as well, we had three ladies play, in the Lala Mariam Cup. Okay, so there are three ladies. Now, one of them has been catching all of the attention because of her age. Now, it's Morocco's Sophia Sharif Ezakali. She's 16 years of age, just 16 years of age, and she's taken part in this Lala Mariam Cup before. But she won the AACT tournament in 2000 last year, about 2024. Okay, so just at 16 years of age, she's been able to come here into this PGA course and make it into these final stages. There are two other, American players for the ladies, Maha Abi and Inez Lalakesh. So three American players. And of course, for the locals here and for local competition here, it's great news. And for Moroccan golf as well, it's great news because there is that feeling that, okay, we're creating the platform, but the growth of the sport here as well becomes very key. And this is the representation of what we see, in this tournament. So at least Africa is represented fairly, if I may put it that way, considering, the pedigree of the players who are playing and all of that in this competition.
Well, you heard from Joy Sports editor Nathaniel Atto on that beats the King Hassan the second golf competition.
Yeah,
before we go though, Nat.
Okay, so just before you go.
I was going to ask the final question, and then you give us, before that, you give us, after that, then you give us your final comments. You are in the city of Rabat. This year, perhaps the biggest event they'll be hosting has to be the African Cup of Nations. Shamefully, Ghana is not going to be at that tournament. Does it look like a city preparing for the games? Have you seen any hints of AFCON in Rabat yet?
Okay, thank you. So, when you look at the way Morocco has positioned itself over the years, you'd realize that Morocco wants to be placed in terms of relevance within the global picture in a very big way. And they're using different platforms and different strategies to get there. We all do remember when Morocco started bidding for hosting the FIFA World Cup. For some, maybe it may have sounded like a very ambitious idea, but here we are. They've been able to land, they've been able to land the rights to co-host this tournament. Now, put it in the back burner a little bit and throw the focus on the Africa Cup of Nations, which you're asking for. Well, Rabat is one of the cities that will be hosting the games in the Africa Cup of Nations. Now, the home ground, the stadium which used to be the home ground of AS FAR Rabat, we know them in the in the CAF Champions League. They played, they have been very, very consistent when it comes to competition in the CAF Champions League. They've been very, very consistent there. Well, that ground, that home ground, has been demolished and is being rebuilt for this upcoming Africa Cup of Nations. Now, the quarterfinal matches will be played here in Rabat, in the city of Rabat. Very, very beautiful city, a lot of green, beautiful, very well set up and all of that. And the city already looks ready. Now, in terms of the venue, construction is ongoing. We're told that in a couple of months it will be ready, and then all the tests will be done so that we can see the full feel of it. But it's very important to note that this stadium, which is now named, the Prince Moulay Stadium, is a 50,000 seater capacity stadium. Okay, 50,000 seater capacity stadium, and it's multi-purpose as well. So there are tracks, there are other adjoining facilities, and all of these will make up what will become the newly refurbished, Prince Moulay Stadium here in Rabat to host the, you go around and you listen to some of the people who know a bit of football and know the countries that are relevant in African football. Personally, it's sad that Ghana is not playing at this tournament. I mean, we've spoken to some of our colleague journalists here. There are journalists from Western Africa, some from Southern Africa, and all of that. Everybody is just disappointed that Ghana is not playing in this tournament. But for us, I think, I guess that when the tournament proper starts and when we start bringing you some of the images of what it's looking like here in Rabat and for that matter other cities, you realize that we sure have lost a great deal in not playing or not qualifying to play at the Africa Cup of Nations. So Morocco has created a very big platform for all of us as a nation, as nations in Africa, in terms of placing ourselves strategically within the geopolitics of the world with creating these kinds of platforms to bring global attention. And you do realize that aside natural resources as well, one of the key things that nations explore is tourism. And sports tourism is key in there. So Ghana, for instance, as we have carved a new path for ourselves in terms of where sports sector is going to go, where recreation has been added to it at the level of the ministry, you're expecting that we come and take some of the templates that have been grown from here in Morocco and we apply some of them because this template really is working and is working big time. This year, later this year, for instance, a few other things are happening here. For instance, the International School Golf Competition, and Ghanaian students can come and participate in there. Okay. There's also the Women's Day Golf Competition, and Ghanaian women golfers or lady golfers can participate. All of these are, major platforms that have been grown that brings global attention and brings tourists from all over the world. And of course, once it is explored and explored properly, you can't count your money. I mean, the revenue that comes in is immeasurable. And other nations have done it. This nation has done it greatly, and so it becomes a very big template for other African nations to follow. So that what we are doing is that we build the infrastructure, keep the infrastructure well, and create the content around it, so that we welcome visitors from all over the world. And once we are able to do that on a consistent basis, it reflects on the economy. I mean, you and I have been discussing issues about the economy every time in the background, and these are some of the ways that sports can positively affect the growth of the economy. Morocco is doing it, and it's a big example for all of us to follow.
Right. Thank you very much, Nathaniel Atto of Joy Sports in Morocco from his base in Rabat, the King Hassan II Golf Invitational. It's a PGA tournament, bringing us up to speed there. We would have to end that conversation and move things on back into the studio where Felix Romak is still here. Eric Alagidede is on his way. As I mentioned, the GFA Safety and Security Committee Chairperson, DCOP Lydia Donko, is joining us in a moment. She's also a CAF Safety and Security Officer. She'll be in the studio in a moment. So we're going to delay the conversation about Nsawatreman and Kotoko and the murder of Francis Frimpong for now, and then talk about the sports minister, right? So we'll have that conversation.
Recording in progress.
Apologies for that. We'll have that conversation when DCOP joins us. But yesterday, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama finally swore in Ghana's new sports and recreation minister, Kofi Idi Adams, and he had a message for him.
I don't envy your job. You have the monumental task of restoring Ghana to its pride of place in African and world sports. The shambles that is Ghana sports today is completely unacceptable for a country with our pedigree, and I expect that you inject transparency, professionalism, and modernity into the management of the sector. I expect that you concentrate on building up all the sports disciplines, and I know the Ghana Football Association would be a good place to start, to work to make sure that we return Black Stars to its glory days.
President John Dramani Mahama speaking at the seat of the presidency yesterday. And Kofi Adams has been saying quite a bit, hasn't he? Even before his swearing in, he's done a number of interviews, essentially giving us his style gist and a feel of what he intends to do and which areas he's going to prioritize. I think this week, especially in the wake of the Francis Frimpong murder, he has taken a front row seat in doing his bit and also speaking to what he thinks has to happen. Felix, what are the priority areas for Ghana's new sports minister?
Well, actually, I think that, his main target will surely have to be Ghana football. And the one who appointed him, the president, said the best place he thinks he should start from is the Ghana Football Association. And clearly, actually, if you talk about sports, I think that in as much as we've won a lot when it comes to boxing, we are well known as a footballing nation. Our appearance at the World Cup, how well we've done. If you talk about African teams that have performed well at the World Cup, surely Ghana's performance in 2010 brought a lot of limelight to the country. If you look at Ghanaian players abroad, if you look at even on the African continent back then when Hearts of Oak and Kotoko were dominating, before that we saw Ashanti Gold, Ash Gold back then on the African terrain. We've lost a lot, especially in the last decade when it comes to our national team and performance of our national team. It's been awful, and it's been, I must say, it's been a mess now under the Kett-led administration because the Black Stars is not performing. You look at the last three AFCONs, we've not been able to qualify from the group stage. If you look at the standard of our league, it's something that is not good, or it's not professional, I should say. There's nothing premier about the Ghana Premier League. So actually, I think that his priorities surely have to be with how football is being run in this country, especially in the wake of what happened at in Swatre, last weekend. But actually, I've always been saying this, if you look at previous sports ministers and how successful we've been in terms of sports, there should be a key role by government. And if I mean government, I mean the president should have an interest in how the sports is being managed in this country. I can make a lot of examples. If you look at the formation of the Black Stars back then during Nkrumah's time, Nkrumah had a lot of input in how sports was run back then. If you read the history of Ghana sports, the formation of the Rare Republicans, because Nkrumah wanted us to have a very strong Black Stars, CAF would also credit him for the formation of their organization or association, and even when the Nations Cup started. So government had a say. Nkrumah, look at what the late administrators of our games all had, schooled in Germany, because CK Jemfi, I wanted to say CK Jemfi had training in Germany because Nkrumah had interest in his development as a football administrator. Even in our early search to qualify to the World Cup, ex-president John Ajay Kufuor took it as a national interest to make sure that Ghana qualify for the World Cup in 2006. There was a lot of resources, not just from government, but government also, tax corporate bodies to support the Black Stars' aim of qualifying to the World Cup. If you go back to the Jerry John Rawlings era, His Excellency may so rest in peace, he had a personal interest in how well Azuma Nelson, achieved success in boxing. So wherever Azuma Nelson goes and fight, he had a government support behind him. So actually, Kofi Adams, for him to succeed, there should be interest from government. There should be interest from the Flagstaff House. There should be interest from the seat of government. And I am very happy that we have a president who is surrounded by his children who also love sports. He has one child who listens to sports management, one a sports lawyer. So he has a family that have interest in sports. So I believe that the interest should also come from him as to how the game is run in this country, or how sports is being tackled. Another thing is, in as much as maybe our football is a priority, I would love him to have equal attention to other discipline or the least finance discipline. I think that we also can attest to the fact that equally boxing is on the decline, just as football. Because actually, I look at how, for the first time in so many years, Ghana couldn't qualify a boxer to the Olympic Games. After struggling to book qualification in Senegal, we went to Italy, we couldn't. We went to Thailand, we couldn't qualify. It tells you that there's also a decline in boxing. Another thing I would want him to tackle is, I think we have so many unnecessary associations. So many. Now that it is sports and recreation, I think some of the associations should go to the recreational aspect. Let them develop their sports from the recreational level, and then when they get to a level where they need to be an association, then they'll follow the criteria and then become an association.
When you say you want him to go heavy on football,
Yeah,
but also boxing, can we
but
talk-
also have some attention
Yes.
for the least finance
Yes.
sports. I don't want
we-
to call it lesser known.
Yes, but can we talk specific? So, for example, in football,
Yeah.
what does he do? When you
Okay.
say you want him to go heavy there, what specifically? Is it focused on national teams, league, grassroots? What exactly? Money. Same for boxing. What
Okay, so
exactly you want to see
actually,
him doing?
in football, we know very well that the national team belongs to Ghanaians. The Ministry of Sports and Recreation have given it to the Football Association as a trust to manage it for us. But in recent times, actually, we've seen decisions being made by the Football Association in relation to the national teams, and it's been awful, especially under the Kets administration. How many coaches has he appointed? He's appointed about 5 coaches. They have all failed to give us the needed results. And what happened? Whenever there is a termination of contracts, government has to pay. I'm sure government still owes Chris Hilton some fees. I'm sure, I don't know if they've paid that of CK Akono as well. Currently, we all know how bad Otuado is, but look at the decision that was taken by the FA. The assistant gets fired, but the coach gets to stay. So you look at some of the decisions that have been made by the people who are in charge of our football. We went to AFCON, they came back, said they had a criteria, they had a 5-pointer they are looking out for in appointing the coach. They went against their own criteria and then picked Otuado. So actually, some of the decisions that those guys who are supposed to take when it comes to the national team, they fail to take that decision. And I think that the ministry should go hard on that. For instance, I don't believe
So you're saying that they should take away the management control of the national teams?
No, they should have a huge say. Because actually, reason is, I don't know why the FA should even go ahead and appoint management members for the national team when we did not have a substantive minister for sports and recreation. They could have waited. They could have waited to say, let's wait after Kofi Adams gets sworn in, and then we have a discussion with him. What if the sports minister says, I don't even want a management team around the Black Stars, or I want one management team for our male national team, one management team for our female national team? Why didn't they wait for the sports minister to have a discussion about the new rules or additions that they've added to the national teams in terms of the technical department? They could have waited for the minister to be sworn in, have a seat with him, discuss the way forward. Are we maintaining Otuado? Do we need to form a management committee? Probably he might come and say, you know what, the chairman of the committee is Randy Abbey. He's heading Cocoa Board. That's a very big organization. I don't think that he will have time, because the Cocoa Board is almost about 10 billion a year,
Enterprise.
government enterprise. So how is he going to manage that? You understand? And Ghana also have a huge tax in trying to qualify for the World Cup. So that's why I'm saying that they shouldn't leave the management of the national team only to the FA. And actually, we saw the previous minister and the kind of relationship they had with the Kets-led administration. He was bulldozed with every decision that was being taken. So actually, when it comes to the national team, I want the honorable minister to have a huge say in how the team is managed. That's with one area that I want to. And actually, when it comes to the Premier League, we know the problems with the league. There's issue with sponsorship. There's issue with security. Actually, government should have a huge say in how we even run our league. If there is a rule book, if there is protocol, government should have a huge say in making sure that the laid down protocols are being carried out at every venue. Because actually, most of the stadiums, in fact, we have our 3 stadiums. That's clubs use, right? Yeah. The Legon, Kumasi, and then Accra Sports Stadium. Aside that, the rest are parks.
Tamale.
The rest are parks. Actually, even some of the parks are being owned by government through the municipal or district assembly.
Takwa as well.
Yes. So they should have a huge say in how the league is being run in terms of making sure that the protocols are followed. Actually, when the May 9th disaster happened, was it not government that took control over whatever mess was created on that day? Even compensation for people that lost their relatives. Government also have to pay bills for those that were injured doing that. So why is it that you don't have a say in how the game is being run? You don't have a huge say on the day of the game. Actually, whatever happened in May 9th, I'm sure maybe when we get into the security issue, the Jamaica Commission, how many years now? The things in that document, are they still relevant now? So there's a huge say that I feel that government should have when it comes to the management of our league. In terms of sponsorship, actually government can come in. Government offered clubs some cash during COVID time, right? Government can also say, you know what, corporate bodies, we can give you tax exemption, maybe 5%, 10% tax exemption if you sponsor the Ghana Premier League. So there are so many ways. Ghana government can say, clubs, I want you guys to get some 10% tax exemptions on sporting equipment you bring into this country. There are so many ways government can help. Even the use of the facilities. Clubs do pay to use some of the facilities. So government in a way can say, you know what, we can give you subsidies when it comes to the usage of our facility. So actually, there is no country in the world that does not benefit from football. And if for nothing at all, Ghana as a country have benefited a lot from football. And that is why I'm not saying government should take control, but government should have a huge say in how our game is run.
All right, thank you very much, Felix. He is a data analyst, dedicates his life to following the Ghana Premier League. Now, we will get into... okay, so my other guest for the day, Eric Alagidede, is here. He used to be the general manager at Nsatraman United. Before I take his thoughts, I'll ask you the same question, what the priority areas should be for the new sports minister. But just as a reminder, this is what the NDC said they were going to do a few months ago in the run-up to the December 2024 elections. This is I'm reading from the NDC manifesto for sports, or on sports. They said they would support the development of Colts Division 1 and 2, Ghana Premier League by augmenting the salaries of registered footballers with allowances. They said they would undertake emergency refurbishment of pitches, tracks, and other facilities at our national stadia in Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, Cape Coast, and Sekondi to meet FIFA standards. In Accra, we do know that we have at least 2 stadiums. We have Legon and the Accra Sports Stadium. So by the time they leave office, all 4 or all 5 of these facilities, Accra Sports Stadium, Legon, Tamale, Cape Coast, and Sekondi, will meet FIFA standards. As to where they are going to find the money from, the next time we meet Kofi Adams, we'll put that question to him. They said they would pursue their long-standing policy of establishing international standard stadia in all regions, build more multi-purpose sports facilities to promote regional sporting events and inter-school competitions as part of their talent development policy. They said they would ensure equitable investment in other national teams, such as women's football teams, para sports teams, juvenile teams, and lesser-known sports. Upgrade the University of Education Sports College at Winneba into a modern sports university offering training programs in sports-related medicine, science, and sports management or administration at campuses around Ghana. They said they would establish sports centers of excellence in the northern, middle, and southern zones in collaboration with existing universities and the private sector. Support national athletes more consistently to compete internationally and develop post-competition careers and pension schemes to cater for national athletes. Offer scholarships to promising sports talents and invest in the establishment of sports academies in partnership and the private sector, and support retired sports personalities in pursuing other sports-related careers after an active sporting life. And this is what the NDC said they would do in their manifesto. Eric, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for everything you had to do just to get here and on time. Let me also say that we've also been joined by the DCOP, Lydia Donkoba. Would allow her to breathe and then we'll bring her into the conversation. Eric, this is what they said they were going to do, but we cannot say we're a country going through austerity and pretend that sport is an island with a bottomless pit of cash. So prioritizing is of the essence. Same question to you. What are the priority points that Kofi Adams needs to focus on?
A very good afternoon to the cherished viewers out there. I don't know how you pull this, but ordinarily I'm not supposed to be here, to be honest. It's my birthday. How do you bring me into the studio? Atsu?
We'll fight that battle after here. But yeah, thank you very much for coming.
I think that the minister has been talking a lot, and I'm not too comfortable with the rate at which he's granting interviews, to be honest. And I think he needs to slow down a bit, because you guys in the media space, you can actually set him up there, and he may even fail before he takes over the office.
That's not fair. We only ask questions.
Yeah, because almost every other day, Kofi Adams is in the media. He's about the only minister who has granted so many interviews within the shortest possible time.
Probably a lot is happening.
But I think he still needs to slow down.
I agree.
He needs to slow down.
I was discussing this with Daniel after Prime Sports Extra on Joy Prime earlier this morning, that you need to get into the space and start working.
Exactly.
Then you start, if there are questions to answer, then perhaps you might want to give an update of what is happening. But it looks like there's an interview every day.
Yeah, you've not gotten into a ministry. You don't even know why your predecessor might have left in the office. I don't think the transition notes are enough for you to know everything about the ministry you're getting into. So you should just slow down. Actually, for me, I think that as a country, we need to understand that we cannot have. How many disciplines do we have? We have over 50.
Over 54.
Come on.
As of the last count.
Come on. Like Ghana, you are going to compete in fencing. No disrespect to any of the associations that I may mention. Yeah. But if you have taekwondo and karate in Ghana, and you meet up with China, Korea, Japan, and these guys, traditionally this is what they do best. In the next 100 years, you will never win a medal. So what's the point? I think we need to understand that we must have a competitive advantage in certain areas. And for me, my priority areas are boxing, number 1, football, number 2, athletics, number 3. These 3 areas should be our most prioritized areas in terms of sporting disciplines. Look, boxing, if we qualify maybe 10 boxers to All Africa Games or the Olympic Games, there's a likelihood that 1 or 2 of them may turn up and come back home with medals. Football, yes, where I have a lot of interest. We seem to be sinking all the money into football, and we are not even doing it right. And so at the end of the day, we are not even getting the results that we all desire to see. We are not getting the results because all the money is up there, and then when you come deep down, there is nothing happening. Meanwhile, the pyramid is actually supposed to be stronger at the base, but the pyramid is much more stronger at the top. And I think that if the minister really wants to succeed, we need to come back to basics and understand that football, when we want to do it, it is not just about the Black Stars. Once you get the foundation correct and you give yourself time in the next 5-10 years, you may not see immediate results. But this is the problem we all have with politicians, because we have 4 years, and so we need to look at a quick fix. Where can we do something in the next 4 years to win the Ghanaian people so that they vote for us? At the end of the day, you don't achieve it. But there are certain things, when you set the targets and you get it right, actually it can take the next 5 years. It can take the next 10 years. Ben Kofi set the 5-year development plan in motion. Who reaped the benefits of it? Was Kwesi Nyantakyi. But when, for those of us who follow Ghana football, when we go back and want to look at the genesis of how we qualified for that 2006 World Cup, we all know how it began. It wasn't a journey that began under Kwesi. It was a journey that began under the late Ben Kofi. So sometimes you may start a project and you will still be credited for it even when you are not there. And I think politicians need to understand this particular point and understand it so well to the point that the NDC as a government can start something now. For those of us who understand it, yes, others may score political points with it, but it may take the next 10 years. They may be in government, they may not be in government. But when we all start seeing the results, we can go back and say that, look, it's as a result of ABCD that was done by this particular government. That is why we are doing this. I'm sure there are projects when the MPP were exiting government, there are projects they've done. The NDC will probably come and complete. But people will go back and say, look, this is something that you need to credit them for. So for me, Atsu Boxing, go around the Bukum area. Have you visited some of the gyms?
It's in bad state.
You need to see where we train these guys. And we want to compete with the Mexicans, we want to compete with the Americans, we want to compete with the guys from Cuba and all that. There are simply no facilities. And if we really, boxing is something that is centered just around one particular region. It's all the boxers are from within the Greater Accra area. This is their strength. What will it take for us to put 5 world-class boxing gyms within the Greater Accra area, so that boxers can have facilities to go and train? You go and see the coaches who are training the guys. It's just a typical street kind of thing. They grew up in Bukum. You go, you see them sparring without gloves. Exactly. No, the guy has no technical ability in what he's doing. All he knows is bend down, throw the jab, do this. But we need to train. We need to train a lot more of coaches.
Right.
Get them to understand what the sport is about. Take them out there. Let them undergo training. When they come back and you set up these gyms, then you see that you have the quality equipment and then you have quality coaching. It's the same problem we are facing in our football. All the top coaches in Ghana are coaching at the Premier League level. Elsewhere, the story is different. You need all the top coaches down there. And that is why I work for Premier League clubs. That is why even at this level, you still have players at the Premier League clubs who don't understand the basics of football. They don't. Because probably from school, he got into a Division 1. Yes, there is talent. But talent is just 10% of the whole concept of football. So, gets into a Division 1, gets into a Premier League club, never really had any proper coaching down there. And so, they get to the Premier League. And there are a lot of 16, 17-year-old boys who are playing in the Premier League. But you ask yourself, from their coach clubs, what sort of coaching did they get before they got to the Premier League?
All right. Eric Alagide is general manager, former general manager.
Be very careful. This UOP is here. Be very careful.
Before I change his sleeping
Yes, before they change my sleeping place.
We will add you to the suspense.
We'll come back to you. Yeah, 2 nights ago, my sister was asking me, but if he was there, how come when between the period he was there and when he left, they didn't beat anybody? Like these things didn't happen. 3 months after he walked out, these things are.
But
he will answer. He will
the
answer that
signs,
question.
the signs were there.
Well, he will answer that question. So let's get final word from Jerome Ochre, who's the former Kotoko Express editor. He has been on the Zoom link for a while now. So we wrap up this conversation on the sports. New Minister for Sports and Recreation. It will take a while, yes, but new Minister for Sports and Recreation. Jerome, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. How are you feeling today?
Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I'm getting better. I mean, you have known my situation for some time.
Yeah.
I think step by step, strength is coming, and I'm fine.
You are healed in the name of God. Thank you.
Jesus' name. Amen.
Yes, agreeing for speak to us, Jerome. Everyone seems to have their opinion on what the focus should be. There are those who want to see more control of how our national teams are managed, and you cannot begrudge them. We've been involved in age fraud in the past. The sports ministry did not do anything about it. We've seen how things are dwindling under the Black Stars. Eric has made a brilliant point about the lack of technical knowledge and proper infrastructure that can facilitate boxing in this country. Felix has spoken passionately about the Ghana Premier League and all of that. Amidst all of this, how does he not take his eye off the ball as sector minister? Because these are choppy waters, and they've always been, as far as the sports ministry is concerned.
I think the president made a fantastic point, and I'm talking about President. Fantastic point when he said that Kofi's job is a difficult one, and he doesn't want to be in his shoes. But then, if you look at the sort of analysis that have preceded the confirmation of his appointment last night, you will agree with me that Kofi appears to have had the media and various stakeholders giving him the clearest of indications what lies ahead of him. And I think he should count himself lucky. Lucky in the sense that we have enumerated the problems, we have offered what we think are solutions, and I think he should be, again, lucky that these ideas have come forward. All he needs to do is to assemble his team, that is the technocrats, if they are available, who he's going to work with, and scan through what we have offered, so that he knows what should be done. The biggest task for me is for him to be firm. Look, as for the ideas, as for the suggestions, as for the problems, like I said, we know them. How does he confront them? That for me is a critical issue. So for instance, if you take Black Stars, everyone knows how this team has been run. This team has been run predominantly by the FA with the complicity of government. So that when it comes to, let's say, camping of the team, even when we are going to play in humid conditions, areas where you would say are hot, the team wants to go and camp in colder regions. This shouldn't take any technocrat to decide that it is wrong. It should take just anybody with common sense to understand that when you are going to play in hot conditions, you don't go and camp in colder regions like we wanted to do ahead of AFCON 2023. It will take a minister who is firm on the ground to say that this is a wrong decision and government is not going to endorse it. That is what I expect from Kofi. For instance, if you take issues of appearance fees, yes, we are not saying that our players shouldn't be given money or they shouldn't be rewarded for the fact that they leave their clubs to come and play for their country. But there should be some standard way of doing things, such that the players don't feel like they are coming to play for the national team and they will be paid. The point is this: if we are going to have a national team
that will continue to go to tournaments and not be able to win a game. Yet they go home with $20,000, $30,000, as we have seen in the past, as appearance fees. Then Kofi is going to struggle. What I expect him to do is to put his feet down and say, the Ghanaian public doesn't find this rational and there should be an end to it. I'm saying that it will take a minister who is firm to put his feet on the ground and say, these are the things that went on in the past. These are the things that the Ghanaian public didn't like. How can we get it done right? That should be the approach for me. If you take maintenance, for instance, all our sporting infrastructure have problems with maintenance. I don't believe that any of those guys who put up these facilities for us will put them up without a maintenance manual, for example. Even if they did so without a maintenance manual, there are universities in this country that are studying some of these things. We should get the experts in place to look at the state of our infrastructure and tell us, given the kind of climatic conditions we find ourselves in, how best can we, for instance, maintain the Accra Sports Stadium against the fact that it is close to the sea? Actually, we have traveled. I mean, we've seen stadiums around the world. When the first time, or let me say, the last time I saw a stadium very close to the sea, like ours, was in South Africa, Port Elizabeth, the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. It's very close to the sea. But you don't find rusty elements there because they have been keeping it well. Our scoreboard, it rusted to the point of even collapsing on fans. You know, so these are basic issues that the experts should go in there, analyze, and tell the minister that this is what must be done. If you take washrooms, I mean, why should it be difficult for us in 21st century stadium management for us to keep washrooms clean? How does it happen that Benson Tabel and his church ICGC is able to use the same stadium on 31st December night and taps are running, taps are flowing, thousands of people will use it for that night, and everything goes on well? When it comes to, let's say, Kotoko and Haas going to use the same facility, the taps are not running. What is it that we are not able to manage it as a state, yet when a private person takes it, that person is able to manage it for the period that he or she is using it? So there are issues for the minister to tackle, and I'm repeating that we have set out the issues for him. All he needs to do is to look at which ones are relevant and tackle them to the satisfaction of the Ghanaian public. If you take, for instance, issues of financing, I think that's where the headache is going to be. Because a lot of these things we are talking about, we will need money to get them done and done well.
Yeah.
So there he needs to talk to the experts and get the right things done. The things we want to do are not things that we are going to be the first people who will do it. Others are doing it. How are they doing it? He must talk to the right people. He must consult properly. And after consultations, be firm on the ground. See, if you take our football issues, the last time we had conversations around our Premier League, for instance, everyone agrees that the league as we have it is governed by solid regulations. How is it difficult for the regulations to be enforced? What is it that has become so difficult for us to, for instance, ensure that if a team arrives at a venue, that team will not struggle at the gate, but have easy access with its bars and go and park quietly and come on the pitch to warm up and play their game and go away? Our friend Godfrey Akoto made a fantastic point the last time, that government should look at these things, because you see, at the end of the day, it rubs on the reputation of Ghana. If you read across the online portals, there's one story I saw. A South African website was reporting that a Ghanaian football fan has been stabbed at a match venue to death. So it is and in the headline, you don't read a Kotoko fan or you don't read anything else apart from Ghana being put there. So these are matters that the minister should be interested in. Yes, we've heard that the clubs have met, they have agreed on certain things. It shouldn't be a blanket agreement of, oh, we will do it well, and so we all go back and play. No, the minister should be demanding, he should be asking tough questions. And see, we've seen the kind of football people we have in this country. If he's not going to be firm, I'm not saying he should be going in there, bulldozing his way in and trying to shut everything down. No, that will not work. We live in a democratic environment. What I'm asking for is that government position on certain things should be clear to football people. And if football people are not going to comply, then government should use the legal means to deal with them to get the best for us. If Kofi is going to be firm on these things, I'm sure maybe a year or two, I'm not sure he can do everything in 4 years, but I will be very happy if in the next year or two he will give us some signals that if it's going to take us 4, 5, 6 years to fix what is wrong, we will get it done, given the foundation that he will lay.
All right. Thank you very much, Jerome. You hold it there. We'll come back to you in a bit.
Okay.
I'm just going to conclude this by saying that, look, one of the things he absolutely cannot fail at is how creative he is in generating revenue for the sports fund they say they want to create. So I was going through the GRA report for the year 2024 with specific reference to sports betting. They forecasted that they were going to make 1.2 billion Ghana cedis by the end of the year 2024, the equivalent of $78.4 million US dollars. As we speak, government does not have any clearly stipulated regulation on what its revenue from the 20% withholding tax from betting. Now, distinction, the 20% is from the betting companies. They pay directly. That is not the 10% on your winnings. That's different. In the same year, our entire sports budget was 12.8 million US dollars. And that was the year we hosted the biggest events we had hosted since 2008. So even when we had to make capital investments, the budget on its own did not see any significant appreciation. Look, I'm saying to Mr. Kofi Adams, this is one area where if you lobby well, if you make a good case, we could have an ally that says about 30% or 40% or a significant percentage of this revenue goes directly into the Central Sports Fund, so that for the capital projects that you want to undertake, you don't have to join the queue for the consolidated fund. Right. So I'm sure they have a number of ideas.
Actually, you see, I also don't understand why we have the Statscar service, right?
Yeah.
The peak data about the economy, they tell you GDP, so and so. How much does sports contribute to the GDP of the economy? It is very important because actually, you see the numbers you mentioned.
Yeah.
Have you imagined how much remittances from footballers that are playing outside? If Thomas Partey is earning,
if we were to put a value on
yes, if Thomas Partey is earning £200,000 a week at Arsenal, how much does it even bring to Ghana? If we are to even collate that amount of money
over the years,
yes, within the season when they play, that's why I'm saying that sometimes we also need. So as a sports minister, our advice, I'm sure maybe they have their stats or data department. They should be asking these figures because it will also help you in planning. We should know how much sports contribute to the economy.
Felix, not to cut you, but I think a committee was put up, if I'm not mistaken, by the current FE, headed by Dr. Randy Abbey, to submit a paper to government on the contribution of
sports,
not just football.
I think that's 2020.
Yes.
2020. Yeah.
So, and I am an industry player. I never cited that document. Okay. So here we are.
You're live on Joy 99.7 FM. This is Sports Link. We spent the first hour, if you like, because we started, we spent the first hour of the show discussing the new sports minister and what the priority areas should be for him. Now, though, we have to move the conversation on to the unfortunate passing of Francis Frimpong. You may have known him as Nana Poli. He is a very was a vociferous Kumasi Asante Kotoko fan who passed away on Sunday. After we'll get into the details of that. It's something that triggers me quite a bit. But to help us contextualize that conversation and see how much we can glean from the entire episode and our security infrastructure.
Is this on already?
Yes, it is on. So if you can adjust it, is DCOP Lydia Donko. When we first heard of her, it was ACP, right? I think when she first got into the GFA web, it was
yes,
ACP. Yeah.
I think so.
Careful, police people don't joke with their titles. Be very, very careful.
That's why yes. So I'm
Their ranks, yes.
So I guess congratulations are in order. She's also the chairperson for the Ghana Football Association Safety and Security Committee. She's here because beyond what she does this week, her job has been in the spotlights. She had to be at the front row of the GFA's investigations into the matter. Good afternoon, DCOP, and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Right. For the benefits of our listeners who do not know what you do in relation to Ghana football, if you could enlighten us on what the chairperson for the Safety and Security Committee at the Ghana Football Association does.
Well, the Safety and Security Committee has a responsibility to ensure that all football-related events or matches played in the country, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's Division 1, Division 2, women's football, all the football activities under our calendar, in terms of their security and everything related to how the players and all the actors are going to be taken care of. We ensure that that is done. The environment that they are supposed to be playing in is secure. So what we do is we work with the key law enforcement agency, which is the Ghana Police Service, to ensure that that space is safe and secure. Yeah.
In terms of the everyday activities for any of the products, say Division 1 or here in case the Ghana Premier League, just how involved is the committee in terms of what the security infrastructure for the day and even detailing is? What is the level of involvement your outfit has in that regard?
Yes, so what we do is that when the fixtures or the schedules are out for the week, we liaise with the various commanders on the ground, where the football matches will be played.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time that we have received the fixtures or schedules, they have it already, because it's a responsibility of every club to inform your local police that you have a match coming off in their jurisdiction. So when we contact the police, what we are doing is that we are liaising with them, looking at how they are preparing for the match in terms of the provision of security, and we advise. And according to our assessment, sometimes some of the matches are hotspot matches, if I can call it hotspot, or category A matches which are potentially like tension related matches because of probably the teams that are playing or the fans that are involved. So sometimes you find members of my committee going out into these various jurisdictions to work with the police, as it were, to look at what they are doing in terms of security, and they assist in advising and supervising all of what they do. So we work with them. That's the level of involvement that we have.
Now, you also perhaps have to brief us on the changes that we've seen as far as the security infrastructure of our Premier League clubs, our competitions are concerned since you came into office. What are some of the differences that you've noticed, some of the practices that perhaps they used to do that have changed, and the areas where you feel some progress have been made?
What I can say is that the feedback I actually get from some of the club owners and officials related to clubs is that sometimes, for example, in the past, when they have to go and play some matches, they just have only a few policemen at the park or at the venue, at the match venues. But because of this involvement I'm talking about, that we have with the various police commanders, if people have concerns and they reach out to us, we ensure that we liaise with the commanders and give them directives on the intensity of the match, so that they look at beefing up the personnel that they send to the various centers. And in some of the areas, I get good feedback that because of my intervention, things went on well, people were safe, and the matches came to a safe end. And another thing too is that when people have to travel across regions, for example, they also reach out to us, they write to us, and then through the committee, we also write to the operations department of the Ghana Police Service, who provide escorts for teams who have to move across. So I would say that those are a few positive changes that have come in since we came into the space.
So does the committee's work involve gathering intelligence of perhaps anything that could affect the peace and the safety of spectators? Does it involve anything?
Definitely yes, because it's a safety and security committee, and security can't work on its own. You'd have to definitely work with the critical and key law enforcement agency, which is the Ghana Police Service. So we have that working relationship. So if we don't have to gather intelligence per se, because of the working relationship we have, we are able to do that. That's what I'm saying. If we have information about certain matches, for example, local derbies, for example, this weekend we have one coming up in the Techiman area. I've already reached out to the commander there, and my committee member is actually leaving Accra this afternoon to Techiman to help with all of that. So we do that. Yeah.
I was asking because in the aftermath of Sundays of unfortunate stabbing of Francis Frimpong, quite a number of people have been asking how the FA did not appear to have anticipated the clashes, specifically the involvement of Francis Frimpong, because now there are videos of him going on national TV to beg that so first he stated that he had been approached by 10 different people who had told him that if he comes there they were going to kill him, and he apologized on national television. And the questions have been, did this come to the notice of the FA's Security and Safety Committee? And
his death is quite unfortunate, and we sympathize with the family and the club that he supports, but it didn't come to our notice per se. And the best I can advise for now, or say for now, is that if he had any genuine real concern, he could have approached the police, or made somebody in that area get to know that this is it, and then the police are aware. But we had to go and investigate. We've been to the ground and we've gathered our evidence and everything. So it's important to make that distinction that the unfortunate stabbing did not happen inside the stadium, although it's related to the football activity.
It didn't happen inside the stadium?
No, it didn't happen inside the stadium. So, and I have to say this because there's all kinds of comments about people are saying, how did the police allow someone to come into the stadium with a knife? And let me mention that the police have a strict search regime. At least that is something that I speak with my various commanders, and we insist and we do it. There's a strict search regime when you're coming into the stadium. We search everybody who is coming in. And this unfortunate incident didn't happen inside the stadium. It happened outside, and he was picked, after he had been stabbed, he was picked by a driver, this vehicle they call a boboya or something.
Yeah, tricycle.
A tricycle, yes. And then the tricycle dropped him at that section of the stadium. I believe that he did that because he knew that the ambulance was at that side. You understand?
Yeah.
So the stabbing did not happen inside the stadium. That distinction has to be made very clear.
Right.
So he came and then he tried to seek assistance. That's when he dropped, and then he was assisted to the ambulance. Yes. So we have a strict search regime, but unfortunately, it's now that thing, when certain things happen, then videos come out and all of those things. But anybody who has any concern, you have to go to the police and make that concern real known, so that if we have to take any action, then we can do that.
Okay. But shouldn't we have the infrastructure in place, or the machinery, if you like, so that for games like this, or even for any game at all, when there is something like that happening, because apparently this had been going on for weeks, so the initial comment that upsets the instructorman supporters, the back and forth on TV and on radio, until it got to the point where he had to go and make that apology. Should we not have a system in place that at some point, if there's something significant or even undertones like that, we can have that flag it and assess and then see whether or not it is worth taking it up?
Well, it's open for consideration, but what we do is that the police are always prepared for various matches. They deploy, and that is how come even when the incident happened between the players, you saw that the police went onto the pitch to try to stop all the scuffle and everything. But this issue has brought up a real conversation that we need to have as a people, as a country, which is not just about let's say people involved directly with football. There's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of education and sensitization that has to happen with fans and supporters as well. You know, supporters are also a key group in this football ecosystem. It's important that they understand that if they are coming into the stadium to watch a match, there are rules and there are regulations, they have to comply with them. Even if you disagree with an action that a referee has taken or assistant referee has taken, you don't have to vent that action by throwing water or any object
Missiles
onto the pitch or attacking the goalkeeper, all kinds of negative things. So we need to start talking about that. We need to start having that conversation. And then the good thing is that we've met, as the FA has met with various groups. Yesterday we had a meeting with the supporters group. So they're a key part of our football family. And what I said to them was that they should use their base. If it's strong, for example, House of Oak has a good supporter base, use that base to speak to, through the media, to people and then your fellow supporters, how to conduct yourself, comport yourself on the pitch. So when we have that conversation, it will also help.
Let's circle back to your investigations and what you've uncovered. So you've established that the stabbing did not happen inside the stadium. It was
No,
outside.
it didn't. It didn't.
Because Instructorman caused quite some flack when they suggested that indeed it happened outside of the stadium. Now, on the issue of the ambulance, what have you picked up? How is it possible that your job as the ambulance driver is literally to be in the ambulance for when an emergency? Do we have, what have you picked? What is the explanation for his disappearance?
So all of these things came up when I actually went to the ground, you know, to do the investigation, and it has opened our eyes to things that occurred and things that are taken as the norm, you know, in certain areas. And out of this, we are going to come out with more stricter protocols in terms of security and the uniformity of that. So it's possible that he was somewhere either watching the match or with his colleagues. You know, they have, in addition to the driver, you have the actual people who, the staff, the paramedics. Yes,
they're supposed to be our
yes,
nurses.
yes. You know, so for them, I believe per their training, they are out there to, as it were, respond to emergencies for is the players or the officials on the pitch. So all of this has enlightened us to realize that they also need to have that kind of sensitization, you know. So for a driver, you have to remain in the vehicle so that if there's any emergency, as soon as it has to move, it has to move. So all of these things are going to inform us so that when we come out with certain protocols, then it's going to be uniform. Because, for example, at a pre-match or technical meeting prior to the match, you have security, you have the teams and all of that. So all of these things are things that we are going to insist on and ensure that they are done. Yes.
What we saw on TV did not look like the police were prepared. I don't know whether prepared or equipped are the right words, but they seemed seriously understaffed for that kind of occasion. You have done your investigation. What was agreed at the pre-match? What number of security officials were supposed to be there? Because what we saw there didn't look like it should pass for even a semi-competitive game. So to see that at the Premier League, was that what was agreed on? What was the agreement, and was that consistent with what we saw?
Yes, so what I know is that what was agreed on was about 30-something police officers, and actually that number was there. that number was there, but I think there was quite a number of them in the inner perimeter, and then neglecting the stands and other places. So as I mentioned earlier, we are looking into all of these things, and hopefully going forward things are going to be more standardized. And this also brings the conversation which we all need to start looking at, the issue of stewards. In our football space, we don't have stewards being a standard form of security adding to what the police is doing. In other jurisdictions, you have the stewards who are there as part of the security setup, and then the police is also there. Even in some jurisdictions, they have private security, even in addition to police. So we are looking at that and hopefully encouraging clubs and all of the people involved in football to start formalizing and looking at the issue of stewards, so that those numbers will also be there, and then to complement what the police provide. The reality is, if you talk about security or adequate security, you can't have all of the security you would want to have. Remember that the activity of football is one of other activities in any jurisdiction. There's other duties police are performing. For example, during the election era period, you saw them, obviously police are handling elections and all of those things. So what we can do is what we provide, you understand, and then we would expect that other components which should be able to help with security would also be available. And also the most important thing is, if we all understand the rules and the regulations, it wouldn't make the work of the security officer difficult. So for example, you know that you are not supposed to be in a certain area unless you are accredited. You don't have to be there. But we see it happening. People walking across, people are club owners or club officials. I own the club, so I can go into the tunnel. You know, I own the club, so I can go to any other space. But if you understand this, it makes the work of security quite easier, and everybody understands what they are supposed to do. So we have to, obviously, as you mentioned that you didn't see that many, or what was agreed on at the pre-match is not what was on the field and everything. So these are all areas that we are picking up, and then hopefully we will work on in the coming days.
On Tuesday, the GFA charged Nsatraman and Kotoko for, I think on Monday rather, for failing to keep their players in check. And then there was a separate charge for Nsatraman for not being able to insist and ensure the security protocols. A part of it, I believe, goes to not being able to keep the fans in check. Clearly, we saw someone pelting missiles at Mohamed Kamara, the Kotoko goalkeeper, and then when the Kung Fu style fights broke out, we saw some more of them even going on to attack some of the players on the pitch. Yes, the GFA may sanction them, but I mean, the fact that it happened on a football pitch does not take away the fact that it's an assault, which is a crime. Have we identified those people who attacked the fans? I mean, who attacked the players?
I wouldn't be able to say whether they've been identified or not, because that actual aspect of the investigation is being handled by
Separately.
Yes, by the regional police in Sunyani. So when you speak to them, obviously they know that as you say from the videos, you see somebody doing that, but in the heat of the moment, it's difficult for you to actually make an arrest, because you don't have, as you mentioned, the numbers in terms of the police, so many of them. So what you do is, fortunately, if you have videos or pictures, it will help, and then you can always use that to make further arrests if you have to, because if you have to assess the situation and then know how to move in to make the arrest or not. And it also brings up the conversation that we also have to have about, for example, having CCTVs at our various stadia. You understand? If you have CCTVs well positioned and working, all of these things make it easy. An incident has happened, we just go to the video and we are able to identify. But now, for the benefits of, because people have phones and social media and everything, it's actually helped us a lot in identifying people. Last season, for example, there was an incident at Baba Yara between some fans and then officials. I think it was Kotoko and another team. That case is in court currently. We were able to identify and arrest people based on the pictures that we had from either people's phones or the media that was available. But it would be better, ideally, if all our stadia, for example, are equipped with CCTV, so that if things happen, we're able to identify people. Yeah.
What you're saying is interesting. I nearly said funny because on Thursday I was at the FA Secretariat for the emergency meeting. I didn't get the sense that the football people agree that we need that level of licensing regulation that would require having the kind of infrastructure that you're talking about at home venues.
I don't know why we should need a licensing regulation. If you've built a stadium, wouldn't you be interested in ensuring that your facility or property is secured? You understand?
So it should be a basic requirement.
Exactly. So it will interest you to know that when I came back from Instruction, I've completed my report,
right.
And I've handed it into a general secretary who is looking into it. And that's one of the recommendations I made about CCTV.
Right.
I made it, yes. So at the management level of the GFA, I'm sure someday they would look into it. It's basic, it's standard.
If you can summarize the key points in the main takeaways, which I'm sure are in the recommendations that you've made for us, just for education purposes.
So a few would be enhanced security arrangements for all matches, closer collaboration between players or actors within the football industry and security, and also identifying and enforcing certain protocols that are expected of teams. For example, when you come to a stadium, they have an area called the safety zone.
Yeah, the safety zone.
In the regulations, the individuals or the people who have to be in that safety zone are clearly identified. But in our system, we've been doing things for a long time, and we think it's yes, we take it for granted.
Normalize it.
We've normalized it, which is wrong. So what we are saying is one of the things I mentioned, that we have to insist and respect those protocols. If the team bus is coming, it's the players and the officials who have to be on the bus. Yes, but what do we see? We find supporters sometimes joining the team buses. It's unacceptable. If they are not joining, they are there.
Sometimes they are behind the bus with an extra car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the incident that happened on Sunday, the home team, some of the supporters were at that safe zone, preventing the away bus from coming in. It is totally unacceptable. So we are recommending all of those things to be strictly enforced. And another thing I want to mention is we are going to make sure that things that happen within that football space, if they are potentially criminal, we treat them as crimes.
Perfect.
And I did that last season. I'm sure we all know that Kotoko has some of their people who are in court because they invaded the pitch and beat the referee. That case is currently in court. In Division 2, there's a match that happened in Adiembra. An official of a Division 2 team slapped a referee.
Is it the Navy team?
Pardon?
Is it the Navy team?
Yes. The physio of the team. He's a Navy officer.
Yeah.
That case is in court. So probably from my side, I think I would have to be updating probably the communications department of the GFA to roll out all those updates of those cases. So this time around, like I'm saying, we are going to further insist, as we've tried to do and we've been doing. So that people tend to get away with things. They'll slap a referee and then nothing comes out of it. Another dimension of this is that when the police tried to arrest, or even if they arrest and they want to investigate and prosecute. You find club owners and people coming, officials coming with the chiefs and people to be begging. This culture in our society has to stop.
The John Tuahine people.
Yes, they'll be coming and begging. So now you make the work of the police difficult. So if we don't start prosecuting people, banning people from stadia, and letting everybody know that this person has been banned, he can't come to the stadium, then we'll get nowhere. But with this incident, unfortunately, it's a wake-up call, and we are going to take those actions.
I have a final question for you. I'll keep.
Can I make 2 quick points before I go?
Yes, so I was coming to you,
Okay.
because you've been on the line for a while. What do you want to say, Jerome?
So I think DCOP has done a fantastic job. I mean, we have to commend her. She's one of those beautiful people within the football setup, not just the police, but within the football setup. And she made a point which I think should be flagged, and maybe from tomorrow morning we should see it around. Those prosecutions that are ongoing, maybe those of us in the media are not doing well with our inquisitions. We are not asking questions about them. But because she's brought them up and also made a suggestion that she probably has to inform the FA's comms department, it has to be done, because you see, it sends a certain signal. When the public knows that there are 2-3 prosecutions of hooligans or some fans who misbehave at the stadium, I think it will do some good work if those information are put in the public domain, so we know that something is happening. Number 2 is, if you listen to her carefully, there's a great responsibility, not just on the FA, but their members, the clubs.
The clubs.
Listening to her, look, the last point she made, supporters joining team buses. You and I have seen it so many times. Those ones, you can't go and blame the police commander.
No.
You can't go and blame Ketokreku. But you can blame Kotoko leadership for allowing fans into their bus. So, the clubs, I will plead with DCOP that they should make it clear to the clubs that they could be held culpable if they facilitate some of these things. That is, if they, I don't know the appropriate term to use, but if it's about breaking the rule, and then in doing that you create more problems, you should also be charged. If you're not supposed to put fans on your bus while entering the stadium, and you do that and that creates a problem, you should be punished for that. I think that clubs must begin to take responsibility for a lot of the things. Listening to her and looking at what I have experienced covering Kotoko, for example, look, the clubs have a lot of work to do. But I will plead with her. Every other case that she is handling, I know police has a lot to do with investigations, and sometimes they want to keep certain things to themselves until they have concrete facts and evidence and those things. But those that can be made public, they should make it public. And I'm sure when the media put them out there, it will send a certain signal to the public that this is what will happen to you if you go up there and misbehave.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jerome, for those erudite views. He's recovering, but chose to join the conversation today, and we so much appreciate him. Felix, you wanted to ask a question, was it?
Yeah, I wanted to contribute and ask a question. And actually, see, you know very well the work we've done.
Yeah.
I stopped going to some of these venues because it was one of the conditions my wife gave me. If you want to marry me, you have to stop roaming about watching. I've been to Karela, I've been beaten in Doma, Golden City Park, at the Lenklin Sports Stadium.
I tell you a funny story at Breakup. The reason I stopped going to Breakup, I think, and this wasn't long ago. This was 2021. So, Kotoko had gone there. The Emmanuel Clotego, the free kick.
Okay.
Kotoko had gone there. They were playing. Kotoko were dominating the game. So, and you as the commentator, you are describing what you see. There are two people to my left. They are not guys. These are ladies. At each point, what do you koswa? What do you koswa?
And you kept giving the commentary.
And you know you are a guy. You've seen ladies, so you think, there won't be violence. I mean, you won't associate ladies with violence. Obeti wasum. After the third time, I turn and I look at them. Then the guys in the row after them or behind them go like, So I check myself. I move a few seats to my right where there are some Kotoko fans because the Golden City Park doesn't have any proper media center. If you,
Not at all. Yeah.
The whole time I'm there, even the Kotoko fans who are by me are also quiet because apparently before I walked in there, they had also experienced a bit of the intimidation, and then after that day, I said, "It's okay."
Actually, you were lucky. See, exactly. I think I went through the same thing. So I was reporting. I was like, "Oh, we've done 87." Or say, "I hire buy more time." I was like, and I was keeping. We have about 3 minutes. The guys carried me. There's a check guy in front of the Golden City Park. He was the guy who saved me. That guy saved me. Wow. And Godfrey Akoto experienced the same thing. But lucky for him, I think he woke up at the hospital in Brekum. The same Golden City Park. At Lincoln, I was saved by a soldier man because I was speaking gun. And the guy in military uniform with a gun, it was Heart of Oak Ashgold. The guy who Jagan. And that was what saved me. In Domande, I was beating myself and James. I was beating. And then I think it was later the venue media officer came to my aid, and then he managed to give me a crate of eggs, Charlie. Whenever I like if I call a crap. So actually, you see, it is important that we even limit some of the venues we have are not security friendly. They are not friendly for the players, match officials as well. So I think that going forward, there are some venues that should not be given club licensing.
And that was a question I was going to
approve for football matches.
I was going to ask DCOP. After seeing, and don't be diplomatic, I would urge you. After seeing everything you've seen at Nswatre, is that facility safe for football at the elite level? Knowing all the requirements that you have to work with, if you are going straightly by the book, is the Nana Kromansa the second park a facility that should be sanctioned for a Ghana Premier League match?
You know, for now, it's been banned, right?
Yeah.
And walking through it with the stadium manager, we pointed out certain things that were not right, you know.
Like what?
For example, the area close to the tunnel, you know, there's a space which is like open and
it's not closed.
It's not closed off. So what we hear is fans come all the way up to that section. Yeah. That's where they stand, and then they are insulting and taunting and abusing. Yes. So if we are asked to advise,
there should be an upgrade.
That section, for example, we try to speak to the stadium manager to tell him what he can do to close it off, to prevent fans from getting close and all of that. And then the fencing and everything. So if these things are corrected, I believe that it can be used, because this is a facility that was put up by an individual, right? Yeah. So out of his goodness, his area, they are playing football, and football is good. It brings people together, you know. And
what about the other? So you spoke about access, right?
Yes.
What about the other aspects of it? So I know, for example, and because you have run the club, Eric, you can help us here. From the VIP, if you're going to the dressing room, what is the route like, Eric? You have to go through the pitch.
Okay, yes. So the Nana Kromansa, the second park. Yeah. From the VIP, you are facing the only entrance that actually leads you onto the field of play.
And that's where the home supporters usually are.
There is only one entrance. The other entrance is at the back of the stadium, where the safety zone is. Yeah. So it's only the players who are allowed to come in through that point, and then they just enter to the dressing room and then come through the tunnel. So if you are the VIP, that gate is normally locked. Once the game is about to start and the police people take over their positions within the inner perimeter, they take control of that particular gate. I don't know what happened on Sunday because I was not available. But normally, if I'm there, what I do is that, like this UOP said, that particular section where she pointed out, it's actually an area that I had to battle with the stadium manager. I had serious issues with them. Because there are some fans who sit there, and the people who are very rowdy at Nswatre, that is their portion.
fans.
Me, those are my friends. So when it starts and I walk down there, General Yatekasa, it means it's coming to an end and they are going to stop.
But Atsu, don't you think that
You just let
So that portion, you see a lot of polytanks
yeah.
where they store in a lot of water and use it to water the pitch. So it's just something like there's already a wall up to some level. So you just need to put some blocks and then raise that wall up, and you will bridge that gap so that they don't have access to be able to come closer to where the technical bench is. Because as soon as they cross that wall, is the home team's technical bench. Then after the technical bench, you are heading to where the tunnel is. You understand? So it's very easy for them to come there and abuse the referees and abuse the away team players and their technical team members. I fought for them to close that particular area, and it looked like I was just actually doing too much, more than my strength can carry me.
So like I said, they've been banned. So I believe that if they want to still have football played in their area, they would have to listen to advice, and if they have to, as he's saying, raise the wall, close off that section so that people don't get access close. There are things that can be done. There are things that can be done. Yeah.
There are things that we see other clubs outside Ghana do. So, for example, let's say the Rome Derby, Lazio,
AS Roma.
They have a culture they call the punchikata, which is stabbing, right? Not any part, but they stab in the buttock. The intention is not to kill, but to cause serious harm and pain. So those are some of the subcultures the police have to deal with. As a measure, what they do is that at full time, the two sets of fans do not enter the stadium, do not exit the stadium at the same time.
Yeah.
So the mini scuffles or squabbles or whatever it is, the fights that broke out after the match, elsewhere, the police would insist that the away team leaves first before the home team follows. Especially when you have exits like ours, which are super tiny and just two. Because elsewhere, because the stadiums have so many exits, in some places, both sets of fans can actually leave at the same time. But they will not clash. You can direct the traffic. But you have been there.
Yeah.
When you're leaving that stadium, there's only one exit.
No, the exit is not one.
It's not one.
I'm talking about the routes. When you're leaving the stadium, like after you've left,
outside the stadium, going to
before
town.
you come to the main town.
Okay.
Yeah, there is only one route.
And how dangerous is that?
Oh, but from what you've explained, if we want to do it, we should be able to do it. It's just a matter of, for example, keeping one group, containing one group, and that this is a good point you've raised. So it's giving me the chance to also mention that in all of the areas that we are looking at reviewing and introducing on the part of the police to improve on our sports policing security, we are looking at segregation of funds. We are looking at segregation of funds, and even before it comes out that it's a policy everybody should comply with. In some of the previous matches last season, what I tell the commanders is, as much as possible, if you can, let's segregate the funds. But unfortunately, some of these stadiums within our local areas are not so huge that, for example, this in Swatreman, the where the fans sit is just kind of like one section. So every other person is standing, So, but it's still something that we can look into. If we know, if you're coming for the home team, you're coming for the away team, it should be clearly distinguished. And then we segregate funds so that if they have to leave, the end of match crowd dispersal policy also will come in place. So these are things that have all come up, and hopefully when we look at it, we should be able to review our operational plans.
Before that, Eric, the question I asked you at the beginning, in Satraman were noted for this before you went in there. And then for about 18 months, or was it 2 years?
A year and a half.
A year and a half, it stopped. Even in the face of provocations, they stopped all of this. You exit, and then
I exited on December 13th, so it's not 3 months.
You exited too early.
a month and a half later, how is it that supporters can be so brazen and feel the sense of being untouchable to that point? You have dealt with it and you were able to do that to a degree of success. How do you do that? And how do other clubs also keep their supporters in check?
Actually, managing people is actually one of the most, it's a skill, it's one of the most difficult things to do when you have people under you, and she will tell you it's not an easy thing to do. If you go back to Karela, I joined Karela in 2017. It was first time in the Premier League, and Felix, you came to Enyinase. And in our first season, first ever home game, our first game was away to Mediama. We lost 1-0, and we were playing fellow debutants, Techima 11 Wonders. And they scored first. By the 9th minute, they had scored, and we labored to equalize around the 77th minute. And as soon as we equalized, it was pressure after pressure. Unfortunately, we couldn't score. Once the game ended, section of the fans started. Hell broke loose. 2 games into the season, they don't understand how we are not able to beat our fellow debutants. And there was a particular guy, very bulky and strong. The guy wanted to tear down the entrance to the perimeter, held the gate. So I was sitting up there with the late senator, may he so rest in peace. And he said, what's wrong with this gentleman? It's just 2 games in the season. And so I just descended. I didn't tell him anything. I just left where we were sitting up there, and I came down. So I instructed the commander in charge. I said, pick him up. There is no time to waste. And how the police struggled there with 4 policemen. Finally, they had to shock him before they were able to get hold of him. They put him in handcuff. The fans said they won't come to the stadium. I said, damn all of you, don't come. Because it's better for you not to come than to come and cause mayhem and get us banned from here. They took him there. He went, they said I should go to the police station. I said, me, I'm not coming. So finally, he slept over. The following morning, the club owner called me. I went. I asked for them to bail him. They gave him bail. I told them to let him sign a bond to be of good conduct.
Behavior,
that if he comes to the stadium, he will not misbehave. And this was the turning point in Enyinase.
Wow.
17, 18, 19. I left in 2020. 2020, 2021 season, Midiama went there. They started attacking.
Wow.
Kotoko went there. They were attacked. What I do is that this is my style. I don't know about how other club administrators want to do it. I engage my fans every other 2 weeks. So Sunday, I play a game. After the game, I know we'll go away. When we return from the away game, the whole week, I'll do like 2 or 3 times engaging them. So when I went to Nswatre, for me, that was my trick. To the point that you will recall that last season, we were badly beaten at the Sunyani Coronation Park. And between Sunyani and Nswatre, it's a distance of about 20 minutes. Maxwell was hospitalized. After that game, I thought I had been stabbed because my shirt was all over with blood. So I was scared. I not knowing it was the people I tried to help and all that. And when the Nswatre people said they were going to revenge, I started praying and I said, what can I do to make sure that these guys don't revenge? Because from Nswatre to Sunyani, it's not any distance. So
And there was the away match. There was the home match.
There was the home match to be played.
To be played.
So what I do is, normally I don't go to the Nswatre township. So I live there for close to a year and a half. If you meet 10 people and you ask them where general manager lives, maybe 2 of them, you won't find me in town. So I started disguising myself and going into the town. So I go to where people sit. And then I go and sit there. I buy my drink. I sit there and I listen to a lot of conversations. So I discovered that what they were actually planning to do was to go and mount a barrier the next town before you get into Nswatre, after the game, they will go and wait for the Bofo fans at that town, and they will close the road, burn ties, and attack them. So this was the plot. So I started speaking to the commander.
We have to wrap up.
And we did all that. But I did a lot of engagements down there with the people who had the potential to cause mayhem on that match day. And when I got all of them, some of them I had to give them my personal money. And that is how we averted that. So
Felix,
for me,
that's a good point.
so it's a lot of
in
engagement. You
30
need
seconds.
to engage your fans.
See, it's very important. Education is very, very important. But I think we also need to enforce the law. And I love the fact that now, if you go to a stadium and you get assaulted, it won't be just treated as a football game.
It's a criminal
If I can't
offense.
walk at Kokomlemle and assault you,
You shouldn't
and
be
go
able
for
to do that anyway.
and then also I think that we need to enforce some of the things in the club license. I love the fact that, Madam spoke about the CCTV camera. It is very, very important. Very, very important that every stadium or every park we get a CCTV camera. And then I think that the FA should go beyond just a fine and a stadium ban. All these clubs are doing this because of 3 points. Start taking that point away from them. You know very well that if your fans misbehave, you won't get a 30,000, 20,000 cedis fine. It is the 3 points that you are going to lose.
Okay.
And when we see that, I think clubs will start misbehaving.
Thank you very much, Felix, and to you, Eric, and to Jerome Otri, and to you, especially DCOP Lydia Donko, who was called in at a very short notice, but she agreed to join us. And it's been very helpful to our conversation today. This has been Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Victor Atsu Tamakloe. We've got to take leave of you. We'll leave you with the words of President John
So
Dramani
you
Mahama.
wish your guest a happy birthday.
Oh!
So
Today the
organize
Eric will
some
beat
cake,
you.
right?
Hey.
Well, that's for the cake will come.
You have to give me like 2,000 Ghana.
Agree.
Go out.
That's our show for today. We'll be back next week, and hopefully by that time, Nathaniel Lato, your regular host, will be on.
We have serious issues. So.